nightmare.
Hello and welcome to Cinema Subculture, the podcast where we discuss everything strange, obscure and downright messed up in the world of movies. My name's Gary.
And I'm Simon.
And welcome to episode 32. We are discussing David Cronenberg's Crash from 1997.
We should probably set out, Gary, saying that this is our second attempt at a Skype episode.
Mm-hmm.
First attempt at a full Skype episode.
Yeah.
So bear with us, people. We are still working out the kinks. Hopefully this turns out alright. Little plug before we start. I want to suggest everyone goes and listens to the Film Jive podcast, which our very own Gary guest stars on for Lars von Trier's Nymphomaniac. Really good episode. Definitely encourage you guys to go and listen to it. So we're looking at Crash. Do you want to give us a little rundown, Gary?
The film follows a couple played by James Spader and Deborah Carr Unger, who are sort of in a cold relationship, and James gets involved in a car accident and sort of becomes obsessed with car crashes, and the two of them become drawn into a world of these kind of people who have sort of sexual perversions about car accidents and things like that. So it's a film that's been called Beyond the Bounds of Depravity.
Wow.
And the point at which liberal society must draw the line. So it's quite a controversial one in its day.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was quite surprised by the content, to be honest, from a film from 96, 97. Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen a lot of David Cronenberg's films. What about you, Gary? Have you seen many?
I've seen maybe 6 or 7, which is about half.
Oh, you're big. You quite like The Fly.
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a massive fan of his work as a whole. Like, there's films that I love, like this one, The Fly. Sometimes his stuff goes kind of a wee bit silly, just the kind of nature of the effects and stuff he uses. But he's an interesting filmmaker, I think.
Yeah, I've only really seen I've seen parts of Videodrome.
Oh yeah.
And I've seen Scanners. I think I've seen parts of The Fly as well. I saw both parts of The Fly and Videodrome, when I was younger, and never really kind of got into them. But this was the first kind of time I'd seen Crash. It's quite a stark film.
Yeah.
From the outset, as you say, the couple are very cold, and both they seem to be very sexualized and quite cold towards that. Obviously, an open relationship, Quite kind of the dialogue I found quite hypnotic in the beginning.
It's very stilted.
Almost,
it's not naturalistic at all.
No, especially the what's her name, the wife.
Yeah.
Sorry. Deborah Carr Unger. It's just like statements almost that she makes, which it didn't put me off. It just kind of drew me into what is this going to be about. I'd say the overall tone of the film reminded me of, and the way it was made and stuff like that reminded me of like Videodrome a little bit. Videodrome, no, not Videodrome. Sorry, Scanners. I was going to say. The look of it, even though it's made like what 15 years later almost. It reminded me of that quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways I was thinking it's a kind of difficult film to talk about because the way it's directed, Cronenberg is completely detached. He doesn't make any kind of moral stance. There's no judgments in the characters. It's very just kind of, here is, this is what they do. And the way he shoots the film as well, it's a lot of the time the camera's quite far removed in terms of distance from the action. It's just these kind of subtle tracking shots where it's gliding past sort of like the view you would get from a car. It's kind of sort of voyeuristic quality to it. And a lot of the film is just about, it's kind of superficial in the sense it's about surface, it's about shiny things, cars and that. So in some ways, this is not much to get to grips with, in a sense, even though you might say what's in the film, the content is quite shocking, but it's hard to get much of Cronenberg's perspective on it because he's so kind of removed. I think that's intentional because he's not wanting you to invest emotionally in the characters. He's wanting you just to kind of observe them. I think from sort of again a Brechtian
Yeah.
distance, you might say.
It's a hard film to kind of get to grips with right enough. It's because you don't really know necessarily at any point what any of the characters want. Really,
Mm,
it's quite cloud. It's right up to the kind of the last scene where we kind of find out maybe where some of the scene, the intimidation scenes almost from the Vaughn character.
right, aye.
Like it comes into like play where it's almost been like, yeah, that's been what they've been wanting anyway. You know what I mean? There's a lot of
Mm,
scenes in it that you don't know whether like that character for me went within the film from being like the antagonist of the film. Like, well, he was really the antagonist of the film, but like you didn't know where he was standing for a lot of time. You didn't know where like James Spader's character
mm,
was standing with the Vaughn character, because it seemed to be they were with each other and they had the same purpose. Then they would have this opposing purpose where it looked like he was trying to hurt his well, was it his wife? I don't know.
right,
Um, and it was quite weird. You didn't really know where it was going to go, or what the characters were after.
mm-hmm.
Um, and then the Holly Hunter, yeah, is it Holly Hunter? No,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Her character, like that, right up from the initial crash. It's just, I don't know. It's really strange and kind
mm,
of unnerving. Like you just don't know where it's going to go when they meet in the corridor in the hospital. Um, it seems like she's like totally disgusted with him and stuff, as you would imagine. Maybe she would be with him being effectively the cause of the crash that
mm-hmm.
kills her husband. It's just a hard one to pin down. Like
Yeah.
you don't really don't know what's going on.
I
You
think
know,
for me, what makes it quite compelling is the fact that it is so strange, like the way the characters act. They speak in these kind of strange, sort of short sentences,
Mhm.
like, and you get the impression that these characters like just don't give a fuck. Like they're kind of so kind of numbed by society
Mhm.
and sort of conventional morals or whatever. That they're just completely shut off. Um, and it's got quite a kind of that kind of transgressive kind of tone,
Mhm.
um, which makes it quite unusual. It's not like it's quite an unusual film, so I think you're always kind of watching and say like, what are these characters going to do? Because there's no really any way to kind of gauge it with conventional film narrative. Um, there's not a lot happens in the film, but it's just the characters get sucked into this sort of strange world of car crash fetishism, and
Yeah, yeah.
it just kind of plays out like that.
I mean, it's strange because like the kind of most human that a character, or natural almost like reaction you get is just after James Spader's had his crash. It's almost as if he's shaken out of his kind of apathy for life, or disenchantment with, as you say, with society for like maybe 5 minutes of the film. You know what I mean? He seems to be, he's asking where his car is. His wife's still there, being very much just aloof and kind of, as you say, stilted statements and sentences, and he seems quite concerned and almost kind of shaken into reality. And then when they're talking about it seems like there's more traffic
Mm-hmm.
on the road, and she tries to kind of engage and like, tries to give him a hand job, and he's like, pushes her away or whatever. It seems like he's kind of almost been like shocked into the real world. You know what I
Right.
mean? But only until he really meets Holly Hunter's character at the pound where the cars were being
Mm-hmm.
kept. Because then it seems to kind of he goes back into like his kind of um, his own little world really, but from a different angle
Yeah.
via the kind of, as you say, the car crash fetish. As for like the kind of like body horror, or the kind of stuff that Cronenberg
Yeah.
does, what did you think of it like, in this film? I thought it kind of as again it seemed quite like a lot of the kind of, even like the kind of, I mean, there was some like three different couples having sex within the first like
Right.
10
Yeah.
minutes or like less. You know what I mean? So it seemed quite like something that would be deemed quite shocking, even shocking, on the edge of kind of mainstream even today.
Mm.
What we're almost 20 years out now. So it seemed still kind of to be pushing some barriers with the content,
Yeah.
and when it came to the kind of the wounds and things like that, and the sexual activities with wounds, and
Mm.
so it was quite interesting to see how that's I felt that was quite strong element of the
Yeah.
film.
Well, I think the way it kind of treats the sex as a whole is quite clinical. Like Roger Ebert called it a pornographic film without pornography.
Mm.
Um, which is strangely, I did remember. I do remember finding some of it quite kind of not necessarily shocking, but kind of quite hard hitting the first time I seen it. Um, that was quite a while ago, maybe about 2000 or something. I think I seen it on
Yeah.
TV. But yeah, I don't know if I'd call it erotic or not. It's
It's no, there's I mean, it's kind of interesting because like I'd say that there's I'm trying to think now. As you say, everything's treated very cold and clinical. I'd say the kind of the most het up it gets in terms of sex scenes, or there's no actual nudity in this scene, but like James Spader and Elias Koteas,
all
like
right,
when they're in the car, that's the most het up
right,
it seems to get. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Because that seems as actually, I don't know, for some reason that seemed a little more passionate than,
right.
or maybe not passionate, but like heat of the
Mm,
moment than some of the other stuff that seemed to be they're getting off on other
mm-hmm.
things. Whereas that they just got tattoos, okay, maybe, but there was no like car crash immediately before that or anything.
Right.
But I don't know that when I was watching it, I was thinking, oh, that's actually I think the most we've seen the characters kind of get into
Mm-hmm.
sex, rather than like just like I mean, they're having James Spader and his wife are having sex at one point, and she's just asking him if he's seen the other guy's
Yeah.
penis, and like, has he sucked his dick, and have you ever sucked a dick? You know what I mean? It doesn't seem as if it's like she's not really seem to be trying to get him
Right.
into sex in particular. You know what I mean? It seems to be kind of like, "Gonna fucking shut
Mm.
up." No, I haven't. All right, I maybe will one day. Just shut it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to finish and get to sleep. I've got work in the morning. you know. But I mean, what was your thoughts like on that? Like, I thought I didn't really expect that to come because it had been kind of signposted beforehand. With her seemed to be getting off on the idea of it.
What are you talking about? The homosexual scene?
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
Um.
So like, I didn't necessarily think that was gonna like come from those characters, but
All right. Well, I don't know. It just seems like every person in the film, it's kind of like
everybody's getting.
orgiastic. Everyone's
Nah,
going.
I guess, I guess.
Um.
I mean, it didn't seem out of place, but it was just like, oh,
Right.
right, because they did kind of signpost that I felt like a little bit, with the kind of it made you think almost it was coming,
Right.
I guess, but before. But I mean,
Mm. Yeah. What do you think of the whole kind of ideas of the film as a whole? Um. Obviously, that's from the novel to a certain extent as well, but I think I'm kind of sympathetic to the kind of ideas, but I don't know if the kind of metaphors that Ballard's using are that well. Like, I haven't read the book, so I can't really comment too
mhm,
much, but it's obviously. Well, he's talking about how the car is like. I think there's a quote here. The key image of the 20th century is a man in the motor car. It sums up everything the elements of speed, drama, aggression, the junction of advertising and consumer goods with the technological landscape. So I think he's talking about how like well the the two main protagonists they're kind of so isolated from each other that they can't really engage emotionally in sex anymore. So that's like the kind of metaphor of the individual in the car and the kind of metal box of modern technology, and we're all kind of isolated. Which I don't know if it's that profound an idea, but
mm, yeah,
although it's one
I
I'm kind
mean,
of sympathetic to, like the modern world of sort of scientific reason, it becomes a bit clinical, and it leads to that kind of postmodernism where everyone's kind of detached from each other a wee bit.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, I mean, like you look at the what we're doing now, like on the internet, like chatting to each other
Hmm.
online, and the Facebook revolution. It's kind of this a similar thing of the kind of detachment from having to be emotionally involved with people.
Hmm.
It's kind of this. It's kind of an extension of what you're saying. How well is it done in this film? How well did he get that idea? I don't know. I mean, do you think it comes across strong in this
Not
film?
really. Well, that's the thing I was trying to ponder. There's really not a lot of meaning to draw from the film.
No, no.
But I don't know if that's because intentionally it was it's like the film is directed very subtly. Um, and obviously the detachment that's intentional we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So Cronenberg isn't going to kind of hit you over the head with the kind of message of the film. Um, but I don't know if any of those ideas come through. But maybe that's kind of looking at it the wrong way because maybe it's more just about not specifically about the car crash stuff, but more just about um, sort of about obsession and perversion.
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of read that
Yeah.
today, but
Yeah, I get that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just like once as you say, obsession and pushing everything, and not giving a shit about anything but
yeah.
what they want.
I mean, Ballard and what he said about his own book has been quite ambivalent because sometimes he says that the book's meant as a cautionary tale, so that's in that sense is kind of condemning the modern world. Um, but at the same time, he's also contradicting himself and says stuff like um, the violence is kind of innate to human psychology. Um, he's talking about how like the modern like people love to watch car crashes and violence in films, so he wanted to explore the idea that is that kind of exhilaration sort of within our own kind of animal brain, and is it to be now kind of is there a link between sex and that kind of thrill we get when we watch like, a car crash on film or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
I mean, like that what you're talking about there takes me straight to that scene where they're driving past the car crash, and
Aye,
the Vaughn character grabs his camera and starts getting out, and I mean that's literally somebody with a smartphone,
yeah,
like going mental and taking video and whatever, and so I'd say that's definitely it definitely has parallels to the modern day. You can see that that's tracking and got worse, or magnified to where we are
yeah,
now.
yeah. Ballard, I think, was quite surprised that the reaction the film got um, compared with. He was saying, "Well, look at Scorsese's films or something. People love
Mm-hmm.
violence. They sort of give it critical acclaim, but I don't know if the difference in this film is that um, one, there's no plot which turns people off, and then two, just like the coldness of the direction, plus the kind of the strangeness of what's happening, the kind of unusual characters, um, just kind of automatically shuts people down and turns them off. I don't know.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. It is. It's not something. I, I don't know. It felt, as I said, like it did have a similar feel to something like Scanners, something like that. So I think it felt like out of time with
Right.
itself. It didn't feel like. I mean, it's hard to remember like back in the '90s what films like felt like when you watched them. But this didn't feel like a '90s film.
Right.
I think it felt as if it kind of it could have been set in the '80s almost, or what I mean. It didn't feel necessarily where it was set. So I think that might take people out of it a little bit as well. Um, but definitely the characters not having like clear like kind of
Hmm.
motivation. I think is something that maybe be hard for people to get into. I thought the performances were so good that really like draws you in, and you kind of just want to go with the characters because you don't kind of you don't really need to know what they want. It's just it's fun watching them and kind of go through these experiences and stuff like that. And it is kind of hypnotic, especially at the beginning with the couple and the way they're talking and stuff. And then after the crash, you're just kind of waiting to see what the reaction this guy has to the crash. And I guess like you would kind of in a modern or a mainstream Hollywood film, it would kind of be the thing that turns this guy round on his life and.
Mm.
Maybe he dumps the wife or whatever and gets his life quotation marks in order, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So it's kind of interesting where this goes, and it basically it's literally just him continuing on what he was doing with a slight deviation on what gets him off. Um, and maybe that is like what you're saying about the voyeuristic nature of people, especially even today. It's whatever gets you off.
Right.
Maybe not even like right to sex, just like kind of like the whole obsession with celebrity. With I mean that can be described as literally a car crash. Some of those stories. So I didn't realize Casey Jones from the Turtles was in this film.
Oh yeah, Elias Cotius.
Yes,
Right.
I've always quite liked him as an actor. Like I've only seen him in a few films, but I always think he reminds me of a young Robert De Niro.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was quite like that, and that there's a scene where James Spader and him are driving in the car. I can't remember where they're going. Can't remember where they're going. Might be just after. I think it might just be after they do the James Dean crash.
Right.
And I just thought he looked, the way he was. I don't know. His choices he was making, his performance were very like a young Robert De Niro, and even his voice at times.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've only really seen him in this, and he's in Exotica as well. The Tom McGowan's film.
Right.
I've seen him in that and obviously the Turtles films, and he's in Let Me In, the remake
Oh
of
yeah.
Let the Right
Yeah.
One In. Alright in that. I don't have much else to say about that film, but yeah, I mean, what did you think of the other performances in the film?
Um. Yeah, I thought it was overall kind of a great cast. Obviously, I think a lot of them were just wanting to work with Cronenberg. Obviously, it was a controversial novel, so it was kind of probably obvious that the film was going to be controversial. So that's quite a brave thing for like Holly
Mm-hmm.
Hunter or someone to do it. But I mean, yeah, saying the performances are great. It's funny because they're so subtle, but they're
Yeah,
so kind of there's not much
they're
there.
like,
But
it's almost kind of the antithesis of what you would say is like an engaging
right,
performance
aye,
because it's quite like impenetrable. You can't really get into the
mm,
characters
mm,
necessarily. So it's kind of hard to like, instead of like them making you feel like you know them and can engage with them, it's kind of the opposite, and you're kind of like alienated a little bit by
mm,
them. But I think that makes them all the more kind of what's the word, alluring. You just want to watch them almost.
yeah.
Um,
Maybe the Elias Scott's character is maybe the warmest in a way, even though
mm.
he's kind of the
Yeah,
antagonist. Um, I think he's
he
the one
does
that
seem
gets
to
to
run
express
the
the most
most.
emotion. I think,
Yes,
yeah,
yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. He seems to run the most on like his gut.
yeah, yeah.
Um, what the whole culture of recreating car crashes. Is that a real thing? Is it?
Not as far as I know. Um,
No, it was quite interesting how it was put together. I
yeah.
thought and then like why does his buddy go ahead and do the crash himself?
Hmm.
Was that just a theory, or does he just think he's done it himself, or is that him imagining him in there?
Uh, hmm. If he does do it himself, I guess he's just maybe he was trying it out, or maybe he just thought he was too eager
He
to get
got
it done. But
he got it done pretty like, perfectly,
yeah, yeah.
exactly as it was described. So it seemed like when I was watching it, I was like, is this him,
Hmm.
imagining this?
Or maybe it was a suicide attempt to recreate it.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I guess that's about. There is a kind of obsession with celebrity death, maybe car crashes especially. Maybe
Yeah,
that's
I
less
mean,
true
I
now.
guess so. Yeah, yeah. I mean, like the James Dean one was pretty. iconic.
Hmm.
Um, it seems to be more like plane crashes. You kind of remember like like celebrities. Can you think of any other famous car crashes?
Well,
Like
the
of
ones they talk about in the film, the Jane
uh-huh.
Mansfield, Grace Kelly,
Sure. Oh yeah, Grace Kelly. I forgot. Yeah.
um,
That's true.
JFK. They kind of talk about that as a car crash
A
in
car
some way.
crash. But yeah, I don't know, but the unless it's just made up. Is it in the book the car crash thing?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
take it.
I haven't
No.
read it, but
Um.
maybe like it's about because the car is like a more accessible vehicle, like so it's maybe it's a bit more if someone dies in a car crash, then it's a bit more like it affects you more than like a plane or whatever.
Yes.
But
Yeah. Because that's
um,
true. Uh huh. Hmm. Um. So look, what's your like? I've heard you other places saying you're not the biggest fan of Cronenberg. So what do you think's your
all right,
problem with Cronenberg?
um,
Just
I don't know if I necessarily have such a problem with them. I just the films I've seen, there's some I really like, some that I don't like, some just think are alright. I don't know, maybe like in terms of horror, I'm not the massive fan of the kind of sometimes physical things like physical effects and stuff can fall onto the. It just looks a bit silly.
I
I
just wondered. As I say, I don't know. Like, I've always wanted to see some of the films we've talked about. So like, I was wondering if there was a reason that you were not necessarily the biggest fan.
nah, not really. I mean, there's films like Eastern Promises and what was the other one at that time? History.
Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't care for
violence.
them at all. I thought they were really bad, just like uninteresting, dull.
Yeah,
I'm seeing
he
these.
definitely seems to. Well, I have not seen those films but like Eastern Promises, um, History of Violence, like A Dangerous Method, and it seems to have changed his style a little bit. Are these horror films or are they?
No, they've got
No, so
some
they seem
scenes of graphic violence, but um,
right. He seems to have changed
a,
his style a little bit. It
a wee
feels.
bit, yeah. I mean, I haven't seen like his most recent things, but
Hmm. Well, let us know what you think, guys. I mean, if you're a big fan of Cronenberg, drop us a line. Let us know why. Recommend something for me specifically to watch because I've not seen many of his films. Um, I'd like to maybe check some of them out from his older stuff. I've seen Scanners. I've seen most of Videodrome. Um, and I'm just checking out a few things just now. Like A Dangerous Method's got Michael Fassbender in it,
right,
and I'm really a big fan of him and Vincent Cassel.
Dead
So
Ringers is good.
I'd be interested.
That's one I quite like.
Right. Okay. But drop us a line. Like, let us know if you really don't like him. Let us know that as well. Let us know why. Um. Okay. So
We
not
should
bad.
talk about just mention the release of the film in the UK.
Hmm.
How
Yeah.
well the film was passed uncut by the BBFC, but
Right.
at the time there was a big there was a campaign by the Daily Mail, uh, as you can guess, the normal culprits, who sort of what was Chris Tukey, the 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 critic for the Daily Mail, said they called the film the point at which liberal society must draw the line, um, and they had a campaign to get the film banned. Um, it was quite extreme. They took it to the point of like lobbying councils all over the UK to ban the film. But the only council that did actually ban the film was Westminster Council. It's how the film laws determining theatrical distribution actually work in the UK because the BBFC has no actual legal authority over film distribution in terms of its theatrical release. It's individual councils, so they can choose to ban a film or cut a film if they choose to. But ultimately, it was only
Right.
Westminster that actually did ban it.
So like I know there was an R-rated cut and a theatrical cut, but like, that was just a kind of DVD or home video type thing,
In
was
the
it?
US,
Situation. Yeah.
um, Probably. I mean, I know the 18 was the full NC-17 one. So
Right, right. I mean, what do you think about that? I'm looking through the films that were released in that year. You know, do you think it's justified? You know, well, not justified. Do you think the worry that they had about it was any base in, like, the actual content in the film?
um,
I think. I mean, I think I think it does have some like graphics, sex scenes in it. Nothing that I think would really make you bat an eye today, but
not really. I mean, the idea of the film on paper is maybe more distasteful than what's in the film.
yeah.
It's meant to
Mm-hmm.
challenge, um, and it's sort of that kind of irony that if there wasn't the reaction to the film, then it would have much more a low profile and less people would see it. But um, I don't know. It's that kind of problem we always have, like on this podcast. Like it's probably shocking to a lot of people, but we could
Mm-hmm.
don't have
Mm-hmm.
that gauge anymore. We've kind of lost that a wee bit. But it doesn't warrant compared to some of the other stuff we've done. It's fairly
No, no,
tame.
no, definitely, yeah.
What's even though the ideas might be quite extreme, how it's visually depicted is fairly tame. But I think maybe the some of the critical response, the negative critical response, was due to the tone of the film as much as the content. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've talked about that before. How given a moral stance on violence or whatever, um, kind of, if you tell us how to feel about something, then even something more extreme is more palatable to us. Whereas if it's like just cold, like irreversible or
Yeah.
something, it seems more shocking.
Yeah, no, yeah, because almost the character's indifference to what's happening makes it seem even more stark and kind of like shocking because they don't seem to be shocked by it
Yeah.
necessarily, or we're not being, you say, we're not being kind of told how to feel
Mhm.
about what we're seeing. Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was hypnotic from the start, um, and I enjoyed what was happening. I didn't really see. I knew kind of what the what the basis of the film was. I knew about the leg wound
Oh
fucking
yeah.
scene. I knew about that's kind of in pop culture, so like, I knew about that scene, but I didn't really see. I couldn't guess what was happening. If you know what I mean, with the whole, I wasn't sure what was happening throughout the film. With the whole, like, they're trying. As it turns out, they're trying to get her injured effectively by the end of the
Right.
film. His wife, they're talking about she's fine, she's okay, like, and he's like, maybe next time, and you're not sure, is like they're trying to kill her, or they're trying to like just get her wounded enough to need
Mm.
pins. How bad? Sorry, how badass was that? Like knee brace he had in.
Um.
That was hefty. Like, see the one James
All right.
Spader
Okay.
has. Like, it's like a
Right.
Terminator leg or something. It's crazy. It's like, oh man, it was just like so heinous. It was. Phew, I didn't like the thought of
mm.
that at all. Bye bye leg. I thought the crash itself was a bit lame.
The
I wasn't that into the actual crash at the beginning.
right. Okay.
It seemed like it was a bit too drawn out.
Hmm.
Like, he went onto the other side of the road and he dodged a few cars, then went head into
Right.
one. I don't know. For some reason, it looked a bit kind of like, oh, you could have just put back out to the other side of the
All
road
right.
again. I don't know. I expected it when I saw it. I expected it because he was looking down, trying to pick stuff up. I expected it just to kind of
Right.
happen,
Okay.
but but that was the only thing really. You quite enjoyed this film.
Yeah, I like it quite a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what kind of draws me in is the kind of strangeness of it. That it's quite compelling because it's just that the characters are not characters you see in a normal film at all.
Cool.
So yeah, but I think ultimately maybe the sort of slight problem I have with it is just not being able to pull that kind of clear meaning out. So I don't quite know ultimately how to feel about the ideas in the film. Even though to some extent that's probably intentional,
Yeah.
but
Mm-hmm.
so it's a wee bit of a tricky one. But no, It's one that I definitely think it's a good piece of work.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I had a look when I was trying to find this film, like to watch it. I don't think it's been released on Blu-ray or anything like that, but
No,
I don't know. Do you think it's something that Criterion would maybe touch, or
yeah, because they did release it in Laserdisc
oh they did,
back
right?
in the
Oh,
day. Yeah,
okay.
so I think it's always one that gets tossed about
Hmm.
the on the kind of rumor mill for
Hmm.
Criterion. They just put out scanners and Blu-ray,
That's right.
just announced
That's
it.
right.
So it's possible. Mm,
Yeah, that'd be quite interesting to see.
yeah,
See them, yeah. I'd like to see some like special features and things like that.
yeah,
You know, see what they're making of, and maybe that would give some clearer idea where he was coming up from it with it.
yeah.
You
There
know,
was the Cronenberg commentary
right
on that
on the
Laserdisc, but
lasers.
I couldn't find it.
No,
Sometimes people put up MP3s of some of the old
sure,
Laserdisc commentaries, but I couldn't find that one.
cool. That's awesome. All right, okay to wrap up there, or
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay, guys. So, like, we hope this has turned out all right, audio wise. Again, let us know. Like I almost said in the comments below, we're not on YouTube. Um, we're going to be looking at another film next episode. Believe it or not, kind of a trend for us. We're going to be looking at Holy Motors from 2012. 2012? Did you say 2012 or 2012? What do you say, Gary?
2012, I think.
Yeah,
But I
2012.
like to have the freedom to fluctuate if I choose to.
Okay, right, I won't hold you to one of them.
Okay.
How do you pronounce the director's name? Is it Leo Carax?
Um,
Leos?
Leos, maybe.
Right, okay, so it's a French director. So yes, it's a film that had like kind of blind bought the Blu-ray. It was something I was wanting to try and see when it was at GFT for a while. So yeah, we're going to be looking at that next time. I've already seen it. Gary hasn't watched it yet. But it's an interesting film, definitely. If you guys want to check it out before you catch up with us next time, that would be awesome. And again, you can let us know what you think of that film. That'll be episode 33, will it?
Mhm.
Yeah, unless we do any little impromptus, you never know what's going to happen, Gary. It's all up in
Oh,
the air. It's all buzzing about. Before we go, have you seen anything interesting recently, like, films wise, that you want to like either say was pish or good?
hmm. Um, been watching some James Bond
Oh, aye.
movies. They've been on TV.
Sure. Oh, I thought you were going to say those ones you'd picked up in the.
Oh no, I did watch some of them.
Mm.
I'm quite liking some of the earlier Roger Moore ones.
Oh,
I
really?
think they're
Right.
just a wee bit more kind of fun. I mean, I think even overall, I think Conway's a better Bond.
Mhm.
Um, I just find these ones a bit more enjoyable because I think they strike a better balance. Because maybe sometimes the Conway ones are a wee bit, they haven't quite found that balance between sort of the seriousness and the kind
Sure.
of light-hearted, just entertainment stuff. And I think they do have a tendency to go on a bit long, like maybe 90 minutes should be a good.
Good time
Sometimes
for.
they drag you up to like 2 hours. And you're like, yeah, just give us a good stuff and get out of there. But
See, if he says fucking Bond, James Bond, one more time, I'm gonna fucking go off. No, I get what you mean.
yeah,
Did you ever see Never Say Never Again?
no,
No, the Connery film they did, like, that was kind of, or it's non-canon as it were. It wasn't made by the same company. A different company had the rights to the Bond to make another that Bond film. I think it's a remake of Thunderball.
all right, yeah,
It's a little, well, it's more tongue in cheek. I don't know whether you'd like it because it's Connery, but it's kind of got elements of kind of the Roger Moore stuff.
right,
You know,
mm,
maybe worth a check out if
yeah,
you're kind of liking that stuff. No, I know what you mean though. That I watched the beginning of one of Roger Moore's Bonds. I can't remember what one it was, but it starts off and it's in his house, like he's in Bond's apartment or whatever.
uh,
And his boss comes over and
right.
is giving
I
him a
remember
mission.
seeing that. I can't remember. Was
And
it
and
Live and
he's
Let Die? Maybe.
probably
No.
it could be, and he's got like a girl in his bedroom and she sneaks out, blah blah blah, and it's, but that seemed a little warmer, you
Right.
know, like to the character, and a little more easygoing.
Mm.
Um, but no, I can see what you mean. I definitely agree. I don't think he's like a better Bond, but I think maybe some of the storytelling is a little easier going in the kind of Roger Moore stuff. Cool. One thing I've really seen recently, well, I went to see. I did talk about last time. I went to see Captain America. I did talk about that last time. It was good. I liked it. I went to see Amazing Spider-Man 2. Have you
Yeah.
caught this at your work?
I've seen a wee bit of it.
What do you think?
Meh. Don't know.
Man, it was hoaching.
Was it? Eh?
I didn't like it at all. That's a lie. There was bits in it that were really good that I thought in a different film, in a better film, would have been amazing. It's like almost like they got like 30% of it right, and the stuff they got wrong. They got right. The stuff they got right was so right that it made the stuff they got wrong so bad. You know what I mean? So it just made this like terrible film. I mean, they've got Jamie Foxx in the film as a character who becomes Electro. Spoilers, by the way, if anyone's right. And they totally set him up. The way he's playing it's not so bad. I don't feel it's his fault. But they put this crazy like music in the background, and I'm not kidding you. It's like watching Jim Carrey in Batman Forever as Edward Nygma before he turns into the Riddler. That's exactly what it's like, and he gets obsessed with Spider-Man after he saves him one time. It just felt like it was out of place in the wrong film.
Right.
And I mean, there's a bit at the end. Again, spoilers. There's a major character death at the end, and I thought the way they handled that, the actual showing it and the way it happened, was quite dramatic and well done, and kind of actually was like, holy shit, you know.
Right.
And it worked really well, I thought, but it was in the wrong film. It felt like too many cooks, you know, that way. Apparently they had a whole other stuff they'd shot with different characters that would get cut out, and I don't know, it wasn't really a fun time for me at all.
Right.
And I'm a person who loves these like comic book films. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe it's like we've had so many, well, as a comic book film lover, like I've had so many good to really good comic book films recently that this was just not acceptable anymore, you know what I mean? So maybe that's what it was, but also it still had those kind of elements from the first Amazing Spider-Man that were like kind of, were trying to be Twilighty.
Alright.
And I've never seen Twilight, but that's what I imagine it to be.
Right.
So that can't be a good thing, you know?
That was pretty good, the first one, wasn't it? Meant to be.
No, it was it was mixed reviews, you know what I mean?
Okay.
The stuff that worked in the first one, I guess still works in this one, but I even found, I'm a big fan of Emma Stone, acting, whatever, but I think she's lovely. And I like Andrew Garfield as well, I don't mind him, but their scenes together kind of bored me.
Oh, yeah?
I was kind of like, right, okay, and I was more interested in the stuff with Andrew Garfield and Dane DeHaan, the Harry Osborn, like Dane DeHaan was in Chronicle. I thought the way, because they were playing that characterization, because that was something I hadn't really seen for a while. But no, I felt they missed the mark. The first one was criticised for being a bit too dark, a bit too going for the Nolan-esque Batman thing. And I get that, but it had Twilighty moments in it as well. That was like him coming to our window and stuff like that. But it worked okay in that one because we were meant to be in high school and it was okay. But nah, I didn't really enjoy this one at all. I've went on for far too long about it. And you can feel free to cut that out and cut that into chunks of nope, no good, right? But yeah, just if anyone's out there thinking about wasting their money on it, because I know a lot of people's parents that want to take it, maybe they'd enjoy it. To be fair, don't see it in 3D. I never saw it in 3D, but I can recommend it. Don't see it. Okay. There you go. What an outro. So yeah, that's us. We all good, Gary?
Yeah.
Everything in order. We will see you next time. Goodbye.